Good afternoon, welcome to the UK Column News. It is the 9th of October 2014 and it's just gone 1 o'clock. Myself, Louise Collins, Brian Gerrish and Nick are here in Plymouth, and today we have guest the lovely one and only Michael Doherty. Afternoon, we've had a bit of storms, high tides, thunder, lightning.
Full moon, storms, high water, pretty grey and rainy, and the general weather forecast from those people in the chat box is that it's cloudy, grey and rainy, so probably start of the winter season, I would think. And of course, if the weather's beginning to turn nasty, wet and becoming cold, people who are sleeping rough on the streets are going to need somewhere warm to shelter. Well, David Cameron's got a solution to that, I think.
Indeed, he has. Take a look at this picture. Well, these pictures are from outside Cardiff University and have been placed around the campus over warm air vents to ensure that the homeless people stay away. Students actually at the university are disgusted by the decision to erect these cages put up by the university, but the university are saying they've been put up for public health and safety reasons. And of course we need to remember what London are doing. They're actually putting up the anti-homeless spike. So nice one, David Cameron. Nice of you to be looking after the people of this country.
So there's no money. We just emphasise the point. There's no money for all the people who are so destitute they have to sleep rough. There isn't any money for that, although we can, if you're a university, pay to have these metal cages fabricated and then put into position. And of course, David Cameron can find the money if it's necessary to bomb a country overseas. Then it's no problem at all. Doesn't matter what it is, £1 million a missile, £30,000 a bomb. Just knock on David's door and he'll sort out the problem for you. So here we are. This is Britain in 2014. And of course, we know that in Britain in 2014, the police can easily turn up with anti-terrorism forces to arrest ordinary people on cooked-up charges. Which
Trumped-up charge, yes, good cue.
Leads us into Michael, I think.
Michael Doherty from Justice Now. Good afternoon.
Hey Lou, hello Brian, how are you doing?
Good, nice to see you dressed, Michael.
Well, you know, half-hour warning.
You're right, you've got a new film with the one and only Puddick and Danny Major.
Yeah, well, the documentary.
Yeah, the documentaries.
Let's go back to what Brian was saying, because yesterday in London, the headlines were all terror raids, you know, scaring the hell out of people. And if you read into the detail, the detail was that two 20-year-olds had who had beards, put online that God will reward those who kill in his name. And it seems that that's the strength of that they went into on these terror cells with flashbang grenades, you know, full scale, media covering it all, and I think it's just trying to scare the population as usual that there's more of a threat than there actually is. But sort of touches back to what you were just saying.
Yeah, agreed, Brian.
Sorry, Brian.
Sorry, this is where we see the difference between subjects which the government wants us to believe in and obviously this created terror threat overseas and the violence that certainly isn't created by that is real. We've got to focus on that. Meanwhile, we see something very nasty being slid into place, particularly by Theresa May and his team. But what have you brought out in your film?
Yeah, so there's an independent film company decided to commission some documentaries in this country in relation to miscarriages of justice. The title of the documentary series is called Justice Denied, and I don't think anyone's really done a collection of videos. You know, you'll see the isolated case here, the isolated case there, and they'll try and say that this is not endemic. It's not a systemic problem in the sort of criminal justice system with the police, CPS, IPCC, police watchdog, etc. So they've put together, so far, there's 5 documentaries which cover cases going back from 25 years ago right up to present. It includes the first 2 that have come out. The first one is the case of Danny Major. You can Google him, find out about his case. And he's an ex-police officer from West Yorkshire who was subjected to, well, he made an arrest, as many police officers do around the country, of a guy who was drunk. There was a bit of a scuffle between him during the arrest with the detainee, and he was put into the cell. Danny Major goes off to hospital, and eventually, the next day, he's arrested. He's charged with assaulting this detainee. But the case, which is quite, I mean, you watch the documentary, but it's quite indicative of all of the injustices. You'll see that pieces of evidence go missing, like key pieces of evidence that go missing that point towards his innocence. Because the detainee described when he went to hospital to a doctor that 2 police officers came into his cell. He'd pressed the alarm button, called inside most cells. If you haven't been in there, I've been in there a few times, I'm sorry to say, but there's a button in there, yeah? You press the button and you can call for the police to come to you. Now, that record of that call from the detainee is stored, not in the police station, it's actually quite interesting. It's stored at an independent, supposedly independent company outside of the police force, the signal, when it was pressed. So had that evidence been present in his case, it would indicate that he did press the button and start to follow along with his story. But the company that had the data, it became corrupted and it was of no use. They also hid CCTV of what was going on in the cells, in the cell area. And again, to show that visits were made to the cell, visits that were not recorded by the custody team on that night. So obviously, again in custody, one of the procedures under the Police and Criminal Evidence Act is that visits to cells by police officers must be recorded. They've got to record also visits to the cell for, detainee welfare issues. So the checks that they're required to do throughout the night and throughout the time of detention have to be recorded. Again, that was something that the judge at the trial lambasted West Yorkshire Police for what he called a complete and utter shambles in the custody suite. A lot of the stuff I do involves deaths in custody.
Yeah.
So here we have this, which, if I recall correctly, was sort of early 2000. You've got a situation where there's a cell area detained where lots of people are detained, and it's a complete and utter shambles. Mm-hmm. They're not recording any of the details. But what seems to have transpired in this case, I mean, it took them 3 times to convict him. They really kept going at him to get a conviction on this guy. And his father's a police sergeant as well. It's a police family, and I think it's very important to do this video about this particular guy as well, because of the fact that lots of people are out there saying, if you're talking about police corruption issues, about accountability issues, you're somehow anti-police. And I think that couldn't be further from the truth. The problem is as well, they're victimising and stitching up their own people as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, obviously, probably more often than not, it's members of the public, but it does go on with police officers, who I know a few of them, and quite a few follow me on social media, and have explained to me how their lives were made hell inside the police. Some have had to leave because of the fact that they talk out or speak out, that they're whistleblowers about something, and the next thing they know, they come under malicious complaints and the life's made hell. And if they don't go, they can be subject to malicious prosecutions. Danny, I don't think it was particularly in Danny's case that it was a malicious prosecution, because what seems to have been the sort of the catalyst for what happened to him was it would appear that other people were involved in the assault of this detainee. In fact, that's what the detainee was saying himself. His evidence was that 2 people came to his cell during the night when he pressed the button and he was attacked. Blood was coming from his ear. So obviously the people who were there in the cells thought he's had a fractured skull. Yeah, it's an indication of fractured skull, blood coming from someone's ear. It turns out that wasn't the case. The guy had a broken septum, and his injuries weren't significant. But I guess at the time, people involved decided, well, we'll set him up. Yeah, we'll get the story straight. He's the fall guy, and he'll get blamed for it. Maybe not thinking it's going to go where it went to. And it seems that once the systems got you in its sights, it has a very big problem in backtracking from that. It's covering for other things. It just can't admit fault for some. unknown. So,
Right.
but that, go on.
Michael, we'll just bring across a screenshot of from your Justice Now. This is the Justice Denied documentary, which we should be able to just pop up briefly. So
yeah, it's so Danny Major's the first one, and then you follow old Puddick on the second. So it's one of 5, isn't it? So Puddick's the second one.
Yeah. So Ian, I think they've been released on about a 2-week interval.
Okay.
The second one is Ian Puddick.
Yep.
A lot of people obviously know Ian Puddick. I've known him for many years now from his own case, mine and his sort of. I find lots of people. Things started for them in around 2008. I think it's sort of been I think Ian's case sort of started around that time as well. So I've known him for a long time, and I've known his case for a long time, and I think it's really good to get his case out to show the absolute extremes that, his case is about a company called Kroll, which is the sort of world's biggest
insurers.
Kroll's not
security.
They're security. They're sort of private security. So, a lot of police officers, City of London Police, Metropolitan Police officers, will go and work for these organisations. So they've got a lot of contacts. And there are emails within Ian's case where they first went to Sussex Police with allegations of harassment. This very, very bad law. I mean, I was obviously charged with harassment myself, involved in my own cases, which I was acquitted of. It seems harassment is the key tool which was brought in to silence people. Yeah, if they're speaking, I think Chris Spivey, I don't know the full details, because he's speaking out online. He's now had 2 raids on his home. It wouldn't surprise me if harassment is the tool that they're trying to use to shut him up.
Yeah, exactly.
If I had it, it was brought in to protect women, from stalkers, or I think it was off the back of sort of Susie Lamplugh case, to protect women from stalkers. So that's the sort of problem reaction solution, and that's the problem. These women are being stalked, which is a real genuine issue, and they said they didn't have laws for it. Brought in Harassment Act, but the truth of it is there's still women out there, and some men, probably to a lesser extent, who are being stalked. And yet they do nothing for them. However, cases like Ian's, which was over the affair of his wife, he's obviously upset about it. Tries to speak to the guy, and then he's raped. They went to Sussex Police with the evidence in the first place, and Sussex Police said no, there's no crime here. You go away. They then used contacts in Kroll to make contact into City of London Police, and got assurances that they were going to give massive resource to this investigation into Ian, and Ian had his life pulled apart.
Yeah,
this is your money, your taxpayers' money that's being squandered. All you can if this was about him making phone calls to these people, to this man that they claimed was harassment. His whole business was raided. All his computers are taken. Tom-toms, every device, all sent off to forensic units for examination. This is a massive. Ian says, and I wouldn't dispute it, that this probably cost in the region of north of £1 million. And then you're talking about people on the streets who can't even afford accommodation, trying to live on the streets, or living on the streets through winter and through cold and rain. And they're squandering money in this way when we could actually, the money could well be better spent elsewhere. So, and that resource.
Okay.
Ian's, if you don't know Ian's story, it's a fascinating story. He's obviously turned into a sort of very heavy campaigner for reform in police accountability, which again is if you experience this, the same as similar to what happened to me. If you experience these issues, you can only very quickly realise there is absolute no accountability for our police constables in this country.
Yeah, Michael. So we got a very serious situation here where we're seeing I want to say stacks. There's so much information. There's so much evidence now about this corruption inside the police. And a key point you've raised: the police also report themselves that they're being victimised and bullied by other police officers for whatever objective, whether it's criminal activity. We know that officers connected with child abuse investigations in the Metropolitan Police are being hounded and warned off of getting involved in serious cases. So this is a major breakdown of law and order in this country. We see the corruption in the courts. You've taken the trouble of putting up a film on YouTube to get the message across. Why have you done this? Have you done it because it's the only way to get the information out? How have you got on with the mainstream press and media for reporting this sort of thing? In the early days, in my own case, quite favourably. I mean, there's not, if you go to justicenow.co.uk site, there's useful links there. All the media connected to my case is up there. But that's early days. I do know now that even my case now, someone's realised this is getting way too far. And I know, and I've been told by journalists inside some of the nationals, that my stories are not, things in my case are not getting past the editor anymore. And that's fine, but we know that the media is self-controlled. Not all journalists, but certainly at editorial level, there's a certain exercise of control by whom, and we can only guess. Obviously government at some point. But so you're just touching on whistleblowers, Brian, and I think this is an absolute fundamental issue here, and about the protection of whistleblowers in this country. Got that the police officer in the Metropolitan Police called James Patrick, who blew the whistle on the false recording of crimes. So we're told in this country that I don't think we're in a massively that everyone's out committing criminal acts, but certainly that it's being underreported. And James Patrick sort of identified a number of issues with the Metropolitan Police in particular in how they were failing to record crimes. Things like rape, sexual assault of women in London. This has been going on for a long, long time, not being recorded properly. He's been hounded, and it's so much so he's had to leave the Metropolitan Police. He's now taken them to an employment tribunal. And that's what happens. If you speak out, so people wonder, why do these police officers who know what's going on not speak out? Because they know they're going to become, the subject of these malicious complaints. They'll be put onto some sort of, work schedule where they're put under massive scrutiny, disciplinaries and all of this sort of stuff. That's what happens. That's the reality of what's going on. And I think, Brian, social media, people like you and the UK column have done a massive job in exposing all of this. The mainstream media, stuff that the UK column has been talking about for years now, they're now being forced, their hands been forced in terms of child abuse. It's now all spilling out into the mainstream media because they cannot not be covering what the alternative media like UK column and people are talking about on social media. So you're doing a fantastic job.
Michael, can I just jump in? We're really running out of time. I just want to quickly ask about what cases you've got going on yourself at the moment. We've only got like half an hour left and we've got loads of news to cover, but what have you got going on with yourself? And
very quickly, on the 14th next week, I've got the Bishop of Westminster back into the county court.
Great.
Injunction against him, and that relates to his proven, deliberate intention to destroy evidence in relation to child abuse. He could sue me for defamation, but I'm talking about it, and I've talked about it quite openly. It's in an email. So it's in an email. Hence why the court gave me an injunction on it. They've actually lost the case. Their defence was struck out, and then they've tried to make another application to get back into the case, which is what the 14th of October is about. They're trying to hide information and stuff like that. And we're talking about organisations like the Catholic Church who profess to say that they will not cover up things anymore, that they're going to be open, transparent, and the reality is they're not. And they've just moved, interestingly, this Bishop John Arnold sideways in the Catholic Church out of Westminster, and he's now become the Bishop of Salford in Manchester, so you're getting him up north. Private prosecutions, I can't talk about that because there's reporting restrictions on it. I mean, I can say that the trial was supposed to happen on the 15th of September, and obviously people were looking. What I can say about it is that week then turned into a whole week of legal arguments. The culmination of which is that we're waiting for a decision on the 21st or by the 21st of October, and then I'll know more about that case and I'll be able to speak a bit more about it. But that case is all cool. And that case relates to the Commander Secretary in the Metropolitan Police. It's a private prosecution for perverting the course of justice, and I don't know, it's been touted as being the sort of first in history. And private prosecutions, Brian, I'm sure you're seeing it, is now becoming flavour of real.
Yeah.
Neil, I can't remember his name, or Matt Kaiser the other day, saying they're now going to instigate private prosecution against RBS Bank.
Yes.
Because we are in the issue where the sort of powers that be are refusing to take action against criminality. So the people themselves, we in groups, have to stand up, have to start taking action against when there's clear criminality. So obviously child abuse, I mean, you've got the Melanie Shaw, which I'm sure you're going to talk about, and the documentaries they'll all be coming out very, very soon. But it's all go, Brian, and I think we're at a real crunch point in time with a whole load of things going on. I think it's just really down to the efforts of loads of people, individual campaigners, organisations like the UK Column, who have stood up, spoken out, and we've got to just keep on doing it, because I think the whole thing is going to come down. I really do think, because I know people inside the police, very high up in the police, and I've had it firsthand from ex-police officer who has contacts at senior levels in police up and down the country, who say that you are so lucky that you're not in the police at the moment. It's desperate in there. Yeah.
Okay.
We don't want it to be like that. Let's all pull together and pull things out together, I'm sure.
Okay.
Michael, we'll get you on after the 14th and you can let us know how it went.
Yeah, please, if you go onto the Justice Now site, the first article's on there, justicenow.co.uk.
We're just going to bring the slide up now. We're just going to bring the slide.
Documentaries are on there to watch, and I think they've been very well received so far.
Cheers, Han. Take care.
Take care, Brian. Take care, Lou.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so there's Justice Now if you want to go and have a look at Michael's website. I just want to quickly mention Guy and Linda Taylor. They've had a bit of success yesterday, didn't they? They were in court, and they are able to take action against the bailiffs who stormed Bodnam Manor. So they were down the pub yesterday celebrating, and more to come on that.
Which is just showing that basically the action by individuals, action by people is making a difference. And as Michael Doherty said, it's the private actions that people are now picking up on. So let's follow through, knowing and having that, just hearing Michael's information about corruption in the police, and see what's going on in other areas of the country. But you found this little story here from the Nottingham Post.
Well, it wasn't me, it was thanks to Linda Lordy, and she sent me this last night. She said, Lou, look at this, what I found in Nottingham Post. A film about sexual abuse survivors, and it's going to be showing at Broadway Cinema in Nottingham. So I had a little look into this film, and here it is. It's called Survivors. It's going to be showing on Monday in Nottingham. So we had a little look into who commissioned it, and it was a company called ISAS. And here is ISAS, all in purple, incest and sexual abuse survivors. So I started having a little look into this, and I told Brian, and we went and found who funds this. So here we have it: NHS Nottingham, Ministry of Justice, Community Crime, Nottingham County Council, and others. I was particularly interested in Nottinghamshire County Council because of they haven't helped Melanie, and it was their homes that Melanie was in.
Well, it's an interesting thing, isn't it? That we've got an authority that Mickey Summers, I'm talking about Nottingham City Council, but also the County Council. So we've got abuse victims, particularly from Beechwood, coming out and saying, not only have you not helped us, we were abused, you're not helping us now. Demonstrations on the street in Nottingham, demonstrations in Nottingham City Council chambers, and the victims themselves are saying Nottingham authorities not helping us. But then we have a film pops up that has been funded by Nottingham City Council. If we're feeling cynical, we could say, is this to try and take the heat off the authorities at the moment, who clearly have not done their job in the past and are not doing their job now?
It's not what it seems, though, because somebody's in the chat rooms just saying that's got to be good for the cause. Well, yes, you'd think that, wouldn't you? But Brian made a phone call, and the lady very kindly contacted him back, and she wasn't aware of Beechwood. She wasn't aware of Mickey Summers. She kept using the words political, and I know you told said be balanced, but I said no. These are my thoughts.
Well, it's true. On the other hand, we've got a charity that says it's helped 900 child abuse victims. So we're going to leave this one open. We're going to say, is this film being shown, 25-minute film being shown on child abuse survivors? is this a good thing for victims, or, if we're cynical, is this something that's being used in order to try and take the heat off Nottingham City Council at the moment? So we'll leave viewers and listeners to think about that.
And if anyone's in Nottingham, if they're going to go and have a look, please give us a report and maybe start educating people about Melanie Shaw and Mickey Summers, which this firm and the people commissioning this film knew nothing about. So it could be an opportunity to go and wake some people up if you're in the Nottingham area.
And make contact. Well, that leads us in very nicely to Melanie Shaw. And I'm going to say that we're going to be a little bit graphic here because Melanie is having a very, very rough time at the moment. It seems that there's a bit of backlash occurring in the prison as a result of all the public interest in her case. But what we want to focus on is the fact that Melanie Shaw is still not receiving proper medical treatment, aside from the fact that her normal NHS medication, her long-term medication, has never been administered properly since she's been in prison. Melanie is now in considerable pain as a result of her leg ulcer.
And it's swollen a lot as well.
Yeah, which has remained untreated by Sodexo, who of course run HM Prison Peterborough. What are we talking about here? This is taken off NHS Choices website, so it's an example of a leg ulcer. Melanie has an ulcer on her leg, which she described as being about 1 centimetre in diameter, but she's got considerable pain in a large surrounding area. And what is she being given to treat her ulcer? Well, she's being given dishcloths because proper bandages have not been available in the prison, and she has still not been able to do the normal treatment that had nearly healed this leg ulcer under the control of her own GP.
Can I just say that I know people have been sending in stuff like Manuka honey and colloidal silver, and apparently, according to sources that have been sending it in, it hasn't been getting to Melanie.
No, that's quite correct. We know that some of it's been thrown away. So if we just bring that slide back on screen, this is the state of play at the moment. And just have a look at this, if we can bring this up. So Melanie herself states that aside from no proper treatment, Sodexo staff have been giving her dishcloths to cover the ulcer. She's had to try and hold part of this arrangement up with a dressing gown belt. And this is all witnessed and has been reported firsthand. So this is factual information. Have a look at what Sodexo said to us yesterday. All our prisoners at HM Prison Peterborough have access to clinical care and appropriate medication. Our clinical team of GPs and nurses ensure prisoners receive appropriate medical treatment and prescriptions. The controller is on every site every day with the responsibility for ensuring these requirements are met. How do we reconcile providing dishcloths, J-cloths is actually what we're talking about, in order to treat a serious leg ulcer, and somebody who was able to hear details of Melanie's leg and the surrounding area on her leg and the overall condition, said that in their opinion she was now at a stage where she was at risk of losing toes or possibly a foot or even her leg if this condition was not properly treated. And I can say to our audience today that we spent about 2 hours
minimum
yesterday afternoon trying to get some organisation to respond. We spoke to NHS England, they could do nothing. We spoke to the Ministry of Justice, they could do nothing. We spoke to NSPCC, they could do nothing. We spoke to NAPAC, they could do nothing. Ministry of Justice, we left a message with at about 6 o'clock, 6:30 last night, to say that if Melanie Shaw suffers major physical harm, then as per our telephone call last night, the Ministry of Justice has been informed, and therefore that department and those running it are guilty. So this is the situation that we've now got to. Remember, Melanie is not a convicted prisoner. She is on remand. She is not receiving appropriate medical care. And further stories are emerging of the suicides, leg fractures, and indeed miscarriages that are taking place in Sodexo prison.
Can I just jump in? I noticed from that previous slide, I don't know if we can get it back up on screen,
right.
the previous...
Wait a minute,
We can get that up. I just noticed here it's got the YOI, which is the youth offenders. What must these kids... I mean, if Melanie's being treated like that, I shudder to think what children must be going... If there are kids in this youth offending at the hands of these animals...
Well, it's quite incredible. We know that the other day somebody was watching literally lorry loads. These were not the smaller prisoner transport vans. These were lorries with rows of blacked out windows down the side arriving. And I think in one afternoon period, 3 of those arrived. So welcome, and let's get the names on the table. David Cameron, Theresa May. These are the people running this system where we've now got prisoners are being abused, but the important thing is we've got companies like Sodexo that can make profit out of it. And if we come on to the NHS, so yesterday this was the NHS that said, oh no, we can't help somebody who's not being treated properly, even though NHS England is responsible for the clinical care contract within HM Prison Peterborough. Sodexo administers it, but it's NHS England that's responsible. They couldn't help. But what they can do is sell off patient
Well, that's it. If you thought that after plans in the spring had been scrapped and that your medical files were safe, think again. NH England will be piloting the £50 million data sharing plan, Brian. The care data in 6 areas of the UK is going to be piloted, and they're going to be done in West Hampshire, Blackburn and Darwin, Leeds and Somerset. The full project is likely to start nationally in a few months' time. So if you don't want your medical records and details shared around, you must either write or speak to your GP directly. But they can't supply healthcare for Melanie in the prison, but they can spend £50 million odd on databases to snoop on your records.
Well, we've criticised many MPs as shying away, hiding, sending very childish responses to the subject of Melanie Shaw. But we just wanted to say that this gentleman has come up with some strong support.
Yeah, and it's again thanks to the guys from the UK Columns Melanie Shaw group. They were emailing the MPs, and this has come back from Austin Mitchell. I can confirm I have written to the Ministry of State at the Ministry of Justice concerning the case of Melanie Shaw and will forward on the reply in due course. I phoned his office up, spoke to his secretary and congratulated him on showing some support for Melanie. So now your face is out there, mate. Follow it through. Do the right thing.
We'll see what happens.
We will.
And we've got something else.
We've got something else that was posted up. One of the guys again in our group, John, he said he sent a letter to Michael Spar, who is the Chief Executive of the National Offenders Management Service. I was complaining about the abusive treatment of Melanie in detailed terms. They passed it on without reply, and this is what I got back. So here we go. It says, thank you for your email of the 26th of September to Michael Spur on behalf of Melanie Shaw. You raised concerns about her imprisonment. Your letter has been forwarded to the unit for response. The National Offender Management Service is bound by the restrictions of data protection. There's that word again. It is not therefore possible to go into the specifics of Ms. Shaw's case, although I cannot comment in detail on individual prisoners' cases owing to reasons of data protection. I can assure you that the Prison Service is absolutely committed to the decent and humane treatment of those in its care. Yeah, right. Any complaint of ill treatment is taken very seriously and is fully impartially investigated. The Prison Service works hard to ensure its establishments are safe and constructive environments and is subject to independent scrutiny from such bodies as Her Majesty's Inspectorate of Prisons. And final paragraph, which John here has ringed, it says, I would like to explain that a person's conviction and imprisonment is a matter for the courts. The National Offender Management Service works on the premise that offenders have been correctly convicted and sentenced by the courts. It has a duty to execute the sentences imposed and must therefore be guided by the verdict of the court. Well, it says it there, doesn't it?
Well, what we've got there is a caseworker, of course. We haven't got anybody of any substance replying, and we're talking about sentences. Well, of course, Melanie is not undergoing a sentence.
Exactly.
She's been placed on remand. But this is the pattern wherever you go around Melanie Shaw. If you ask for any of the authorities that say they are responsible for prisoners in court to assist, they can't assist at all. Meanwhile, we've got a stunning silence from the mainstream media, but important issues here have been picked up by Janet Street Porter. So she's saying what?
Your story? I don't know.
You don't know this one? Okay, I apologise for that then. Well done.
Not my story.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what's going on here.
Go on then.
Well, basically, we've got the wife of MP Mr Danczuk, who's basically been posting selfies of herself,
yes,
which are considered to be a bit racy.
Right.
And so the next minute, she's invited by Janet Street Porter on Loose Women. And here is the discussion, and now this has become headlines. So the media can't get to grips with the abuse of children and the bullying and pressuring of victims when they speak out. Let's focus on Street Porter. She's supposed to be a champion of victims and the underdog, and she was. So what is she discussing? She's discussing selfies. Is this to try and undermine Mr Danczuk MP, who has been outspoken himself?
I believe so, yeah. I mean, she does look very young, Gun, and I saw some photos, but I mean, I don't know where. Well, I didn't pick up this on the story, I just read it yesterday.
That's Street Porter. Yeah. We're probably better off seeing a side view than a full frontal. Yeah. But it's incredible, isn't it? And what can we do for Melanie? Well, somebody's been doing something here.
Yeah, well done, Joanne. She's put a banner up outside her house. Free Melanie Shaw, and as she says here, she wished she'd thought of it before, so hopefully that's going to get people in her area asking questions. So really, people are really pulling out the stops now to support Melanie, and
we've just got to keep going.
We've just got to keep doing it.
Right. I think this one's yours.
This is mine. Okay, so Liz Lynn, pictured in the lime green there. She succeeded Leon Britton as MP for Rochdale and is now the front-runner for the presidency of the Lib Dems. Well, her PA is claiming that Miss Lynn ordered her to destroy notes containing streams of allegations against Cyril Smith. Deborah Doyle, who was Miss Lynn's PA, said she had taken notes of a telephone conversation between Miss Lynn and Martin Diggon, who was a manager of the Knoll View Children's Home in Rochdale. Mr Diggon told Miss Lynn about the widespread child abuse that was going on, and that Cyril Smith completely knew about it and knew about the cover-up. After the phone call finished, Miss Lynn, according to her PA, told the PA to not put the notes into the dustbin, but completely destroy them. Miss Doyle, the PA at the time, went on to say that when she applied for the job, it was actually Cyril Smith who interviewed her for the post as Miss Lynn's PA, and last week Miss Lynn was approached, I think, by the Telegraph, and she was asked about this, about the notes, with regards of her covering up paedophilia and Cyril Smith's activities, and apparently she had no recognition of it. And what I thought was great was this was actually posted again on our Facebook, on our Melanie Shaw page, an advert by the Lib Dems. We're making it easier for whistleblowers to report child abuse. Well, it doesn't seem that way.
How many Lib Dem MPs are helping Melanie Shaw at the moment? Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, there we are. If we're to get this lady out, we've got to keep talking about her. We have to grit our teeth with the fact that as we try and help her and talk about her, there's some evidence now that that produces further bullying for Melanie. But she is a very strong lady. She is encouraging all of us to keep going, and she's really very grateful for the support. So if you haven't got one, you can still get a Melanie Shaw T-shirt, and the graphics here can be used wherever you can take it. So the BBC not covering the subject, but they're talking about important issues from the past.
Indeed. Ex-Radio 4 presenter pictured here, Charlotte Green, has spoken out about sexual harassment while working at the BBC. She claims that at the World Service they had panic buttons installed for the protection of women in case male staff decided to grope them. She goes on to say she has been harassed by former BBC colleagues and dubbed them the Wandering Hands. She went on further to say she found herself repeatedly having to make a fuss about unwanted attention, but she was told by managers that the attention was men just being friendly. Nice, isn't it?
So it's all become a little bit jokey.
Yes.
And of course, this is in the background for the BBC. So we've got another allegation now against Ray Terrett, former Radio Caroline DJ, allegedly raped a 15-year-old girl together with Jimmy Savile. So Savile absolutely in the firing bracket. Then who else is in the bracket at the moment? Well, celebrities, as long as it's all historic, but we're not seeing anything which is current. This was sent in to us. I'm going to say we could say bad taste, but it's making a point here. So we've got a Jimmy Savile amnesia plate. I think what we've got here is a collective amnesia plate, because if we look at the agencies who are claiming they didn't know, individuals saying they didn't know, this has got to be utter nonsense. So we still can't get to grips with Savile, but if you send out unpleasant tweets, you're picked up and you can be jailed, as this man was, for 18 weeks. We're not condoning what he's doing. We're just saying, isn't it remarkable we can get to grips with this man, we can't get to grips with the paedophiles. But something very interesting has occurred over the last few days. Some months ago, we were reporting the appalling treatment that this Cleveland mother, Lynn, was getting with her daughter Natalie after they reported what appeared from their evidence to be a paedophile ring. So they were hounded, victimised, bullied by the police. And this was a picture that we've shown before of the mother after the police smashed their way into their house. And if you see the bruising on Lynn's arm here, this is just phenomenal. This is Britain's police at work. What have these ladies done? Have they abused children? No, they attempted to report what they considered to be a paedophile ring operating in their local community. This was a message sent to UK Column in the early days, and I'm not going to dwell on this too long, but basically this was the start of Lynn and Natalie pleading for somebody to help them as they were slowly being victimised and bullied by the police. And at that early stage, they thought this was heading towards some form of psychiatric assessment, which would end up with them being sectioned. Nasty stuff. Now look at where we come to, because we now know that the mother has been picked up by the police.
Was that the mother, Lynn, there?
Has gone through the court. I don't think there are any charges in place, but where has she been sent? None other than Peterborough Prison. So we've got yet another woman who only stood up to try and expose what was happening with paedophiles in the community, and basically she's now mysteriously been sent to Peterborough Prison. Is this the sort of collection agency for anybody who dares comment on paedophile rings in the community? Is she on remand? Has she been sentenced to prison? Nobody knows at the moment. So I'm going to say, in line with Michael Doherty's comments, this is unbelievable stuff. You can go to this website. If we just pop this up on the screen, here we are, which is cocointerspace.blogspot, and here are some of the pictures of Natalie Viet. Sorry, the text is a bit unclear there, but on this website you can read narrative as to what has happened to these two ladies. Absolutely shocking, and yet another example of report paedophile activity. The police come down on you like a ton of bricks.
Yeah.
Why? It's obvious the police are protecting their own, who clearly must be involved in paedophile activity. And we're getting back into Michael Doherty's territory here, because we've got the Operation Fernbridge officer, DCI Paul Settle. He's now stepped down. It appears, according to the Exaro article, that he was pressurised over quite a long period. So what is going on here? Remember the operations. So we've got Fernbridge, which was supposedly looking at the abuse of young boys in particular, abusers, politicians, senior politicians from Northern Ireland, security services and others, pop stars. We've got Operation Chaos, very strange name. That's apparently looking at the Westminster paedophiles, although nobody has heard a single piece of
No.
progress.
Wolf has been quite quiet, actually, hasn't she? I haven't seen too much on her yet.
Well, we don't know what's happening with Wolf at the moment. Operation Fairbank is supposedly scoping politicians who are being accused of paedophilia. And then in the background, we've got Operation Fernbridge, which is now only Savile and celebrities. Nobody else was involved in Savile's paedophilia. So
Unbelievable.
Wolf, I think, is under pressure.
He's probably downstairs today for dinner with Leon Britton and his wife.
Well, we don't know, but what we do know is that there's some doubt as to whether Wolf is going to stay heading that inquiry. Okay, so this is the subject that needs to be talked about, but nobody will talk about. The Express has come up with a major article talking about the shocking rise in ritual child abuse cases linked to witchcraft. But the reality is they should be talking about satanic ritual abuse. And of course, it's a fact that the Ministry of Defence has approved Satanism as a religion to be practiced on warships. And it's a fact that abuse victims are reporting satanic ritual abuse. How is it that the Express decides to label this in capitals as witchcraft?
This article is actually from yesterday. Scotland Yard are reporting they have received 27 allegations over the last year about children being raped, swung around and beaten to drive out the devil. Since 2004, there have been a total of 148 such cases. A meeting was held yesterday at London City Hall between police, teachers, child and healthcare experts, where, according to the article here, they would be watching videos to assist in the spotting of such abuse.
Yeah. So if this is the reality of what's going on under the surface, satanic ritual abuse is the most protected type of abuse because apart from one recent case in South Wales where convictions were obtained, we have silence from the Metropolitan Police's Satanic Ritual Abuse Unit. And of course, that would bring us over to Holly Gregg and Robert Green. This was sent in to us. It appears that Kenny McCaskill, of course, who seems to be one of the people not keen on Robert Green's activities, but he's facing a resignation vote. So we've got a bit of pressure now appearing in Scotland around some of the top tier who have clearly not worked to expose child abuse in the establishment. And Robert Green, still in prison, still under house arrest. And we're just going to remind you of the appalling letter from Mr. Lord MP, where he says, don't worry, I'm going to continue to watch the case. I'm not going to do anything, but I'm happy to sit and watch it. Quite remarkable. So we're just dropping this story briefly, watching the time here. All sorts of information coming on about activity in Eastern Europe, which is not being reported in the mainstream press. And the person who kindly sent this article to us about Estonia arresting a couple of men who sailed across a lake, they've got to be a danger, ex-KGB people. What the person said to us is, pay attention to this article because what you can see is antagonism being created in other former CIS states, these countries bordering Russia. Is somebody up to no good? And this one I think you saw from Russia today.
I did.
Which is
so at the
glad handing, isn't it? I think this is known as.
Yeah. So at the height of the Gaza conflict, when many people here in the UK were disgusted at the Israeli attacks, it seems the UK trade between January and August had reached record levels. In fact, for the first half of 2014, trade had increased by 28%. Figures from Israel's Central Bureau of Statistics show bilateral trade between UK and Israel at 2.5 billion, and exports from Israel have risen 40%. In this article, they say this jump in figures is thanks to G4S, SodaStream and Hewlett-Packard. And as for the arms trade, there is contracts between the Ministry of Defence and Israel's Elbit Systems worth 1 billion for the deployment of drones. And according to the Campaign Against Armed Trains, CAT, the UK grant of 15 million a year worth of licences to Israel firms also contribute to the record high that we are providing Israel.
Well, we started on David Cameron. Of course, you can't find money for the homeless, but there he is overseas, shaking hands and congratulating himself on presumably partly the amount of arms sales. Okay, on that note, we'll end today. Thank you very much for joining us. Pleasure to have Michael Docherty with us, and we will look forward to seeing you at the same time tomorrow. If I just quickly move through a couple of slides, we should be able to, guys, take me a little while. I just want to get to our conference slide. It should come up somewhere. Here we are. And remind people that on the 1st of November, we've got the British Constitution Group conference. If you're getting concerned about what's happening in the country, and we all should be concerned, then this conference is going to be about what is really happening and how we deal with it.
Can I just say, people are saying the hotel is full. What they need to do is they need to go, when they're booking the conference, they get a code and then they enter the code into the hotel and they will get their discount for the hotel. It's not booked, but the rooms are being reserved for people who want to attend our conference. Okay, that's it.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Bye.